The day started like any other at the small animal clinic in rural Korea. Jia wiped sweat from her forehead as she finished bandaging a farmer's dog. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows of her modest clinic. At 26, she was the youngest veterinarian in the district, known for her steady hands and calm demeanor. "All done," she told the dog with a smile, giving his head a gentle pat. "You'll feel better soon." After the farmer left, Jia began cleaning up. The clinic was empty now. She looked forward to going home, making dinner, and studying for her advanced veterinary course. Her small desk was covered with open textbooks about animal anatomy and behavior. The first strange thing she noticed was the silence. The birds outside had stopped singing. Even the insects went quiet. Then came the light, bright blue, pouring through every window and crack in the building. "Hello," Jia called out, thinking it might be car headlights, but the light was too bright, too strange. The floor began to vibrate. Medical tools rattled on metal trays. A strange humming filled the air, growing louder until Jia had to cover her ears. The roof of her clinic seemed to disappear, replaced by endless blue light. Then she felt it, the strange pull upward, as if gravity had reversed. Her feet left the floor. She grabbed at her desk but missed. "Help!" she screamed, but there was no one to hear. The blue light swallowed her whole. For a few moments, she couldn't see or feel anything. When her senses returned, Jia found herself in a large round room with shiny metal walls. The air smelled strange, clean but artificial, like a hospital, but with a hint of something alien. Before she could get her bearings, a door slid open without a sound. Two tall figures entered. Jia's breath caught in her throat. They were not human. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with slender bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors in the light. Their faces were flat with large, oval eyes that blinked sideways. Instead of hair, they had smooth, scaled heads with small ridges running from their foreheads to the backs of their long necks. "Specimen acquired," one said in a clicking, hissing language that somehow transformed into words Jia could understand. "Female. Young adult. Good condition." Jia backed away until she hit the wall. "Who are you? What do you want?" The taller one, with scales that shimmered purple in the light, approached her. "It speaks. Interesting vocal pattern." He didn't address her directly. Minimal threat. No visible weapons or defensive capabilities. "I'm not an it," Jia said, her fear mixing with anger. "I'm a person. My name is Jia. I'm a veterinarian." The second alien tilted his head. "Commander Neth, the specimen appears to have basic communication skills." The purple-scaled alien, Commander Neth, made a sound like stones clicking together. Jia realized it was laughter. "Most primitive species have basic communication," Neth said. "Even your earth birds can mimic words. That does not indicate intelligence." Jia's scientific mind began working despite her fear. These beings had taken her from Earth. They were clearly advanced beyond human technology, and they considered humans primitive. "Where am I?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "It asks questions," Neth said, sounding almost impressed. "Most specimens just scream or attack." He finally looked directly at Jia. "You are aboard the Vashi exploration vessel Sunseeker. You have been selected for my personal collection." "Collection," Jia repeated, her stomach turning cold. "Like a zoo animal." "A pet," Neth corrected. "A companion species. You should be honored. Most of your kind are only useful for basic labor studies." Jia's mind raced. They thought humans were animals. They had taken her as a pet. But even as fear threatened to overwhelm her, the veterinarian's observant eyes were noticing details. The layout of the room, the way the door mechanism worked, the apparent hierarchy between the two aliens. "Process it and prepare suitable quarters," Neth ordered the other alien. "I want it cleaned, examined, and ready for presentation by the next cycle." As they approached her with a humming device, Jia made a decision. She would not scream. She would not fight. Not yet. She would watch. Learn. Understand. They thought they had captured a pet. They didn't realize they had captured a predator in waiting. Jia woke up on a soft platform that shaped itself to her body. The room around her was small but clean, with smooth walls that glowed with a gentle blue light. There was no door that she could see, just solid walls on all sides. "Hello," she called out. Her voice sounded strange in the room, like it was being absorbed by the walls. A section of the wall suddenly changed, becoming clear like glass. On the other side stood a small blue creature. It was half Jia's height with 4 arms and large round eyes that took up most of its face. "Greetings, human specimen," the creature said in perfect Korean. "I am Dak, translator and handler for the special collections." Jia approached the clear wall carefully. "Where am I? What's going to happen to me?" "You are aboard the Vashi mothership, in the personal collection quarters of Commander Neth," Dak explained. "I am here to prepare you for presentation. You are fortunate. Most human specimens are kept in the general research section." "I'm not a specimen," Jia said firmly. "I'm a person with rights." Dak blinked its large eyes. "The Vashi do not classify humans as sentient beings with rights. Your species has not achieved interstellar travel or unified planetary governance. By Vashi standards, you are animals." The wall slid open, and Dak entered with a floating tray of objects. "These are for your grooming. Commander Neth prefers his collection specimens to be presentable." Jia took the items. They looked like combs and brushes made of strange materials. "How many humans are on this ship?" 17 at present, Dak said. 3 in private collections, including you. The rest are in research." Jia's heart jumped. "Other humans. Can I meet them?" "Specimens are not permitted to interact unless for specific research or breeding purposes," Dak said matter-of-factly. "Breeding." The word made Jia's skin crawl. These aliens truly saw humans as animals. "Follow me," Dak said. "Commander Neth wishes to assess you." Jia was led through endless corridors where strange creatures moved about. Some looked like the Vashi, tall and scaled with shifting colors. Others were clearly specimens like her, beings of all shapes and sizes, some in containers, others walking with handlers. They entered a large room where several Vashi gathered around clear display cases. Inside each case was a different alien creature. Jia saw what looked like a 6-legged cat, a floating ball of tentacles, and a crystalline structure that pulsed with light. At the center stood Commander Neth, his purple scales gleaming. "My newest acquisition," he announced as Dak led Jia forward. The other Vashi turned to look at her with their sideways blinking eyes. "A human female," one said, leaning close to the force field that Jia now realized surrounded her. "Primitive species. Their world is mostly water, yet they cannot breathe in it." "This one is a prime specimen," Neth said proudly. "Observe its calm demeanor. Most humans display aggression or fear when handled." Jia kept her face blank, though inside she burned with anger. She was being shown off like a prize pet. "Can it perform tasks?" asked another Vashi, this one with green-tinted scales. "We shall see," Neth replied. He pressed something on his wrist, and a simple puzzle appeared on a table near Jia. "Solve this, human." It was a child's puzzle, matching shapes into holes. Jia almost laughed despite her situation. Did they really think humans were this simple? She decided to play along. Moving slowly, as if the task required great concentration, she fitted the shapes into their correct holes. The Vashi made clicking sounds of amusement. "See how it concentrates," Neth said. "Relatively good problem-solving for its species." While pretending to struggle with the puzzle, Jia carefully observed everything around her. She noted how the force fields worked, how the Vashi communicated, and most importantly, their blind spots. The Vashi had poor peripheral vision, she realized. When they focused forward, they couldn't see well to the sides. As she completed the puzzle, Jia noticed something else. In a corner of the room, behind a different force field, stood two other humans. One was a man in his 40s with short black hair. The other was a teenage girl with a serious face. Their eyes met Jia's, and a silent understanding passed between them. They were prisoners too. "A suitable addition to your collection, Commander," said the green-scaled Vashi, "though I prefer specimens with more visual appeal." "Beauty is secondary to behavior," Neth replied. "This one is calm and trainable. It will learn its place." Jia lowered her eyes to hide the determination in them. Learn her place? Yes, she would. Just not the place they intended for her. 3 weeks passed on the Vashi mothership. Jia had been given more freedom to move around a small section of Neth's quarters. As long as she performed her tricks and acted properly docile, the Vashi seemed content to let her wander in her designated area. Each day, Jia was taken to a large room where other specimens were displayed. It was there that she began to communicate with the other humans. The man's name was Ta, a former military engineer. The teenage girl was Suk, who had been a computer programming student before her capture. They couldn't speak openly, but Jia had grown up with a deaf cousin and knew some Korean Sign Language. When the Vashi weren't looking, her fingers would move in small motions. Asterisk, how long here? Asterisk, she signed to Ta one day while pretending to admire a floating plant nearby. Asterisk, 2 years. Asterisk, his fingers replied when his handler turned away. Asterisk, escape possible. Asterisk, Jia asked another day. Suk's quick fingers answered. Asterisk, security systems advanced. Need codes asterisk. Day by day, Jia built her knowledge. She learned that Tai had been working on something in his quarters, makeshift tools hidden from the Vashi. Suk had somehow accessed parts of the ship's computer system through her room's education terminal. Education terminal. That gave Jia an idea. "Dak," she said one morning to her handler, "I want to learn more about serving Commander Neth. Are there teaching tools I could use?" Dak seemed pleased by her request. "Commander Neth will be impressed by your willingness to learn your duties. Yes, I can activate a basic education module for you." The next day, a screen appeared in Jia's room with simple instructions on how to care for Vashi living spaces and prepare their food. The system was designed to teach through pictures, treating her like a child or a very simple creature. But Jia had watched Dak use the system. That night, when the lights dimmed for sleep cycle, she tried the sequence of touches she had seen Dak use on the screen. The system beeped, and suddenly new options appeared, far more advanced ones. Jia's heart raced. She had access to the ship's basic information system. Over the next few nights, she learned everything she could about the Vashi, about the ship, about the galaxy they traveled through. The Vashi were not the only advanced species. There were dozens, formed into various alliances and federations. The Vashi belonged to the Dominion, a group that believed in hierarchical order between species. Most importantly, Jia discovered that the Vashi were at war with another species called the Krell. And according to Vashi intelligence reports, the Krell had made contact with humans on Earth and considered them potential allies, not pets. One night, Jia found a way to send a message to Suk's terminal. It was risky, but necessary. Asterisk, can hack deeper? Asterisk, she asked. The reply came an hour later. Asterisk, yes. Need time asterisk. The next day, during display time, Jia noticed Suk making a strange pattern with her fingers. It took Jia a moment to realize it wasn't sign language but a code. Numbers. That night, Jia entered the numbers into her terminal. A hidden channel opened, giving her access to far more of the ship's systems than before. Suk had created a backdoor for her. Through this new access, Jia learned the Vashi's greatest weaknesses. Their hearing was extremely sensitive to high-pitched sounds. Their hierarchical society made lower-ranked Vashi blindly obedient to commands that seemed to come from superiors. And their technology, while advanced, relied on central control systems that could be overridden. Jia also discovered something else, a way to communicate between rooms during night cycles by redirecting the ship's internal messaging system. That night, for the first time, she, Tai, and Suk were able to speak directly through text messages. We need a plan, Ta wrote. The Vashi are taking us to a border outpost next week. Security will be different there, I've been studying their tech, Suk replied. Their systems have vulnerabilities, Jia thought for a moment before typing her response. I have an idea. The Vashi's enemies, the Krell, might help us, Too dangerous, Ta warned. How? Would we even contact them? Jia's fingers typed steadily. I found their communication frequencies in the database, and I know when the Vashi communication officers sleep, As the conversation continued deep into the night, Jia felt something she hadn't felt since her abduction: hope. The Vashi thought they were training a pet. Instead, they were arming their enemy with knowledge. They thought she would adapt to captivity. Instead, she was adapting their own systems against them. The Vashi mothership hummed as it traveled through space. In her quarters, Jia waited until the night cycle was fully underway. The lights dimmed to a soft blue glow that the Vashi thought was soothing for their pets. For Jia, it was the signal to begin her real work. She touched the hidden sequence on her terminal screen. The normal pet-level interface disappeared, replaced by the advanced system Suk had helped her access. Jia had memorized the Krell communication frequencies. Tonight was the night to use them. This is human specimen from Vashi mothership Sunseeker, she typed carefully. Seeking contact with Krell forces. She sent the message into space, her heart beating fast. Would anyone answer? Would the Vashi detect her transmission? For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then words appeared on her screen. Transmission received. Identify purpose. Jia's hands shook slightly as she replied. 3 humans held captive. Have information on Vashi ship defenses and movements. Seeking alliance. There was a longer pause this time. Jia watched the door nervously, afraid a Vashi guard might enter at any moment. Finally, new text appeared. Humans are of interest to Krell Coalition. Vashi mothership Sunseeker known to us. Your next port is Trading Station Helios in 3 cycles. Krell operative will make contact. Signal. The stars are bright tonight. Jia quickly deleted the transmission record from the system, just as Suk had taught her. She sent a message to Ta and Suk. Contact made. Meeting in 3 days at Helios Station. The next morning, Commander Neth seemed especially pleased with himself. Today you will accompany me to an important gathering, he told Jia as Dak prepared her morning meal. Many high-ranking Vashi will be present. You will demonstrate your training. Yes, Commander, Jia said with downcast eyes, playing the role of the obedient pet. Inside, her mind was racing with possibilities. A gathering meant more Vashi to observe, more information to gather. Dak led her to a large chamber where dozens of Vashi in ornate scale covers gathered. Some had brought their own specimens, creatures from across the galaxy displayed like living trophies. My newest acquisition, Neth announced proudly, guiding Jia forward. A human female, remarkably adaptable. The Vashi guests examined her with curious eyes. One with brilliant gold scales approached. I have heard that humans have flexible vocal abilities. Can it sing? Neth looked uncertain. I have not tested this function. I can sing, Jia said softly, seeing an opportunity. The Vashi seemed surprised and amused. Then please demonstrate, creature. Jia began to sing a Korean folk song her grandmother had taught her. The melody was simple but beautiful. As she sang, she noticed something remarkable. The Vashi's expressions changed. Some closed their eyes, others swayed slightly. They were emotionally affected by music. When she finished, there was silence. Then the gold-scaled Vashi spoke. Remarkable. The creature produces harmonics that stimulate pleasure centers in our brains. A valuable talent, agreed another Vashi. Perhaps it could perform at the grand exhibition next cycle. As the Vashi discussed her like an interesting object, Jia noticed someone watching her from across the room. a tall, blue-skinned being with 4 arms who didn't move like the other servants. Their eyes met briefly, and the being touched 3 fingers to their chest in a subtle gesture. A Krell, here among the Vashi. Ja kept her face neutral, but hope surged within her. Later, as Neth showed her to other guests, Jia found herself near a refreshment table where the blue-skinned being was serving drinks. "The stars are bright tonight," the being whispered as they passed Jia. "Brighter than they know," Jia replied, the response she had worked out with Tai and Suk. The Krell servant subtly pressed something into her hand, a small device no larger than her thumbnail. "Keep hidden. Will activate when needed." Before Jia could respond, Dak appeared at her side. "Commander Neth requires your presence, human." Throughout the rest of the gathering, Jia played her role perfectly. The clever but obedient pet, she performed simple tricks that made the Vashi click in amusement, all while hiding the small device in her hand. That night, she showed the device to Ta and Suk through her terminal's visual connection. "It's a quantum communicator," Ta said, his eyes wide. "Military grade. With this, we can coordinate with the Krell without using the ship's systems." "The Krell operative said it will activate when needed," Jia explained. Suk's young face was serious on the screen. "This means we're not alone anymore. But can we trust the Krell?" "We don't need to trust them completely," Jia said. "We just need them to want the same thing we want right now, to hurt the Vashi." The trading station Helios was a massive ring-shaped structure floating in space. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked along its outer edge. The Vashi mothership attached to one of the largest ports, its size dwarfing most other vessels. Jia stood beside Commander Neth as they prepared to disembark. He wore his formal scale covers, shimmering with purple and gold. "You will accompany me to the trade negotiations," he told her. "The other representatives enjoy seeing my collection." "Yes, Commander," Jia replied, keeping her eyes down. The small Krell device was hidden in a fold of her clothing. It had remained silent since she received it 3 days ago. As they walked through the busy trading station, Jia was amazed by the variety of beings. Creatures with tentacles, multiple limbs, or glowing skin moved through the crowded hallways. Some were clearly captives like her, walking behind their Vashi owners. Others appeared to be free traders or travelers. "Wait here," Neth ordered when they reached a large meeting chamber. "Dak will watch you." The little blue handler nodded. "Come, human. We will wait in the observation area." The observation area was a small room with a clear wall looking into the meeting chamber. Other handlers waited there with their specimens. Jia recognized another human male across the room, standing beside a red-scaled Vashi handler. Dak seemed distracted, watching the proceedings in the main chamber. "The trade negotiations are important," he explained. "The Vashi are securing new territories in the Outer Rim." Jia nodded politely, but her attention was on the time. According to the station's cycle display, she had only 20 minutes before she needed to meet the Krell contact. "Dak," she said softly, "I need to use the waste facilities." Dak looked uncertain. "Commander Neth instructed me to keep you here." "It will only take a moment," Jia insisted. "The facilities are just down the corridor. You can watch from the door." After a moment's hesitation, Dak agreed. They walked to the public facilities area, where beings of various species entered different doors based on their biology. "I will wait here," Dak said, pointing to the human-compatible door. Inside, Jia quickly checked each stall. In the last one, she found what she was looking for, a small blue mark next to the waste unit, the signal the Krell had described in their last communication. She pressed the mark, and a section of the wall slid open, revealing the hidden passage. Without hesitation, Jia stepped through. The wall closed behind her. A tall Krell waited in the narrow space beyond. Unlike the disguised operative at the gathering, this one wore a military uniform with gleaming insignia. "Human Jia," the Krell said in a deep voice. "I am Commander Vox of the Krell Coalition Forces." "Thank you for meeting me," Jia said. We don't have much time before my handler becomes suspicious. Vox nodded. Then we will be brief. You have information about the Vashi mothership. Jia quickly shared everything she, Tai, and Suk had discovered. The ship's layout, security protocols, and most importantly, the Vashi biological weaknesses. Vox listened intently, occasionally making notes on a small device. When Jia finished, he handed her a package about the size of her palm. This contains 3 things, he explained. First, tools to disable Vashi security systems. Second, communication devices for you and your human allies. Third, a biological agent that affects only Vashi neurology. It causes temporary paralysis when activated. Jia took the package carefully. How do we activate it? The agent responds to specific sound frequencies, high-pitched tones that humans can create but Vashi find painful. Vox showed her a small disc. This will generate the exact frequency needed. One activation affects all Vashi within 50 meters. Jia nodded, understanding the plan now. When should we use it? The Krell fleet will move against the Vashi in exactly 7 cycle days, Vox said. Your task is to disable the mothership's defenses from within before our attack begins. We'll be ready, Jia promised. She hid the package in her clothing. One more thing, Vox said, pressing something into her hand. It was a small metal object shaped like a claw. This can override any Vashi containment field. Use it to free other specimens if needed. A light flashed on Vox's wrist device. Your handler is becoming agitated. You must return. Jia quickly thanked him and hurried back through the hidden door. She emerged from the facility just as Dak was about to enter. Human, you were gone too long, Dak scolded. I'm sorry, Jia said meekly. The facilities were strange to me. As they walked back to the observation area, Jia felt the weight of the package against her skin. No longer was she just gathering information. Now she had the tools to fight back. For 6 days, Jia, Tai, and Suk worked silently against the Vashi. Using the tools from the Krell, they disabled small security systems one by one. Each night, they reported their progress to Commander Vox through the quantum communicator. Ta had managed to create simple weapons from materials in his quarters, sharp blades and small devices that could deliver electric shocks. Suk had planted hidden commands in the ship's computer system, ready to activate at the right moment. Jia continued to play the perfect pet. She learned new tricks, prepared Commander Neth's quarters exactly as he liked, and sang songs that pleased the Vashi's sensitive hearing. All the while, she studied their movements, memorized their schedules, and planned. On the morning of the 7th day, Commander Neth summoned Jia to his private chamber. Today is an important day, he told her, his scales shimmering with excitement. The High Commander of the Vashi fleet is visiting our ship. I will present you to him. Jia bowed her head. I am honored, Commander. You should be, Neth said. Few specimens ever meet the High Commander. Your performances have pleased me, so I will show you off to him. This was the opportunity they had been waiting for. Jia sent a quick message to Tai and Suk. Today, High Commander visiting. Many Vashi leaders will be present. The reply came swiftly. Ready. Hours later, Jia stood in the grand meeting hall of the mothership. Dozens of high-ranking Vashi had gathered, their scales gleaming in various colors indicating their status. The High Commander was an ancient Vashi with pale blue scales that seemed to capture and reflect all light in the room. This is my human specimen, Neth said proudly, presenting Jia to the High Commander. It has shown remarkable trainability. The High Commander's sideways blinking eyes studied Jia carefully. Interesting. I have heard reports that humans may have more intelligence than we previously believed. They are clever animals. Neth agreed, but nothing more. Watch. He turned to Jia. Perform the memory sequence. Jia was supposed to repeat back a series of colors and shapes that Neth would show her, a simple task designed to amuse the Vashi. But today would be different. Actually, Jia said clearly, I would like to perform something new. A murmur ran through the gathered Vashi. Specimens did not speak unless commanded to. It has become overconfident, the High Commander observed. This happens sometimes with new acquisitions. Neth looked annoyed. Human, you will perform as instructed. Gia straightened her back and looked directly at the High Commander, something pets were never supposed to do. I'd like to show you how humans really communicate, she said, her voice strong and clear. Then she began to speak in perfect Vashi language, using the complex clicks and hisses she had secretly learned from the ship's education system. High Commander, I am not a pet or a specimen. I am a sentient being from Earth, a planet your kind has grossly underestimated. The room fell completely silent. The Vashi stared at her, frozen in shock. Impossible, whispered the High Commander. It speaks our language. I speak many languages, Gia continued in Vashi. I understand your technology, your biology, and your weaknesses. She switched back to human language, and I am not alone. Before Neth could react, Gia pulled the small disc from her pocket, the one Commander Vox had given her. She pressed it, and it emitted a high-pitched sound that humans could barely hear. The effect on the Vashi was immediate. They clutched at their head scales, their bodies stiffening as the neurotoxin was activated by the sound frequency. Within seconds, every Vashi in the room was paralyzed, still conscious but unable to move. Gia walked calmly to a wall panel and pressed a specific sequence that Suk had prepared. Throughout the ship, containment fields began to fail. Force barriers disappeared. Locked doors slid open. Over the ship's communication system, Gia's voice rang out. To all specimens aboard this vessel, you are now free. This is not a Vashi trick. This is a rebellion. Security systems are disabled. Vashi guards are paralyzed. Make your way to the central gathering hall if you wish to join us. She walked back to Commander Neth, who lay paralyzed on the floor, his eyes following her with a mixture of shock and rage. You should have studied us more carefully, Gia told him quietly. Humans don't just adapt to captivity. We resist it. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Tai and Suk entering the hall, along with dozens of other freed specimens from across the galaxy. Some were helping others who had been in captivity too long to walk on their own. Chaos spread through the Vashi mothership like wildfire. In every section, former specimens broke free from their captivity. Some ran in fear, others sought revenge, but many followed Jia's call to gather in the central hall. We need to secure the bridge, Ta said as he handed out weapons to those willing to fight. That's where the main controls are. Jia nodded. Suk, can you guide us there? The teenager's fingers moved quickly over a stolen Vashi control pad. Yes. I've mapped the fastest route, but the neurotoxin won't last forever. The Vashi are already starting to recover in some areas. Then we move now, Jia decided. She led a group of 20 former captives through the ship's corridors. There were beings of all kinds, some with 4 arms, others with scaled skin or glowing eyes. 3 other humans had joined them too. All followed Jia with the same determined look. They encountered the first resistance 2 levels below the bridge. A group of Vashi security guards had recovered from the neurotoxin and formed a blockade. Surrender now, specimens, the lead guard ordered. Return to your quarters and your punishment will be minimal. Jia stepped forward. We are not specimens. We are free beings. The guard raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a high-pitched sound filled the corridor. The Vashi guards stiffened and fell, their muscles locked by the neurotoxin. Jia turned to see a small, insect-like being at the back of their group holding one of the sound devices. Thank you, she said. The being clicked its mandibles. Freedom for all. When they reached the bridge, they found it sealed with heavy security doors. Suk examined the control panel. I can't hack this one remotely, she said. It's isolated from the main system. Jia turned to a large, rock-like being who had joined them. You said your skin is nearly unbreakable, right? The being rumbled in agreement. 4 others of similar build stepped forward. Together, they charged the door, their stone bodies cracking the metal on impact. Again and again they slammed into it until finally the door gave way. Inside, a dozen Vashi officers turned in shock. Their weapons were drawn immediately. "Stop," Jia shouted, stepping in front of her group. She switched to the Vashi language. "You are surrounded. The ship is ours. Surrender, and no one will be harmed." The Vashi captain, his scales a deep crimson, hissed angrily. "We will never surrender to specimens." "Then you leave us no choice," Jia replied. She gave a signal, and the sound devices activated again. The bridge crew collapsed, paralyzed but conscious. Tay rushed to the main control panels. "I can operate these. My unit studied alien technology before I was captured." "Good," Jia said. "Lock down all sections where Vashi are still active. Suk, can you access the communication system from here?" "Already on it," the teenager replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'm picking up incoming signals. It's the Krell fleet. They're approaching fast." On the main screen, dozens of sleek ships appeared, moving toward the mothership. A transmission came through. "This is Commander Vox of the Krell Coalition. We are prepared to board and assist." "This is Jia. The bridge is secured, but we have fighting in lower sections. Vashi reinforcements may be coming from other ships in their fleet." "Understood," Vox replied. "We will intercept any approaching Vashi vessels." Jia looked around the bridge at the paralyzed Vashi and the freed captives now manning their stations. She had one more task to complete. "Suk, locate Commander Neth's quarters. I need to see him one more time." With Tai and 2 other fighters as guards, Jia made her way to Neth's private chambers. They found him there, partially recovered from the neurotoxin but still weak. He sat in his command chair, his once proud scales now dull. "You," he hissed when he saw Jia. "How could a simple pet do this?" "That was your first mistake," Jia said, standing tall before him. "Thinking we were simple. Thinking we were pets." "The Vashi Empire will crush this rebellion," Neth threatened. "We are the dominant species of this sector." "Not anymore," Jia replied. She showed him the communications pad in her hand. On it was a transmission being broadcast to all ships in the sector. Footage of freed specimens taking control of the mothership. Evidence of Vashi cruelty. Proof that the specimens were intelligent beings. "This is being sent to every corner of the galaxy," Jia explained. "Your empire was built on lies about other species. Those lies end today." She turned to her guards. "Secure him in a containment field, the same kind he used for his collection." As they led Neth away, the commander's voice shook with rage. "What are you?" Jia looked back at him calmly. "I am human. We were never meant to be pets, and now everyone in the galaxy will know it." 3 days after the rebellion began, the Vashi mothership floated in space, surrounded by Krell vessels. Inside, a very different world had emerged. The great halls that once showcased specimens now served as meeting places where freed beings of all species gathered to plan their futures. Jia stood on the bridge with Commander Vox and representatives from 12 different species. The main screen showed the Vashi fleet in retreat, pushed back by the combined Krell forces and ships from other worlds that had joined the fight after seeing the broadcasts. "The Vashi Empire is fracturing," Vox reported. "Many of their colonies are declaring independence. Others are calling for new leadership and an end to the specimen program." "And Earth?" Jia asked, her thoughts turning to home for the first time in days. "We've made contact with your world leaders," Vox said. "They were surprised to learn of the Vashi. A delegation is on its way to meet with us." Ta entered the bridge with a data pad. "We've completed the count. There were 4,287 captive beings on this ship alone. All have been freed. Medical teams are helping those who were kept in poor conditions." "And the Vashi crew?" Jia asked. "Contained but unharmed," Tay replied. "Most are still in shock that their specimens overthrew them." Suk looked up from her control station. Jia, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They'd want to speak with you directly. Jia's heart raced as the screen changed to show a room full of serious-looking humans in formal clothes. Government officials from several nations sat around a table, staring in wonder at the sight of Jia on a spaceship bridge. This is Kim Jia, formerly held captive on the Vashi vessel Sunseeker, she said, her voice strong despite her emotion. I speak to you from what was once the Vashi mothership and is now a free vessel. An older woman leaned forward. Miss Kim, this is the United Nations Emergency Council. We have been informed of your situation. Is it true that you led a rebellion against an alien empire? Not alone, Jia corrected. There were many of us from many worlds. But yes, we freed ourselves from Vashi control. The questions came rapidly after that. About the Vashi, about the Krell, about the many species Jia had met. She answered as clearly as she could, explaining the galaxy as she now understood it. We need to prepare, she told them. Earth is now known to the galaxy. We must be ready to join it as equals, not as specimens or pets. After the transmission ended, Jia felt suddenly tired. The last several days had been non-stop action and decision-making. She found a quiet corner of the bridge and sat down, closing her eyes for a moment. You should rest, a voice said. She looked up to see Dak, her former handler. The small blue being no longer wore Vashi symbols, but instead had joined those fighting for freedom. Too much to do, Jia replied with a small smile. You have changed everything, Dak said, sitting beside her. When I was first assigned to you, I believed what the Vashi taught, that humans were simple creatures. I was wrong. Many were wrong about humans, Jia said. But that's changing now. Later that day, Jia visited the containment area where Commander Neth and other high-ranking Vashi were held. Unlike how they had treated their specimens, Jia had ordered that the Vashi be given comfortable quarters and proper food. Neth sat stiffly in his cell, his scales dull with defeat. He looked up as Jia approached. Have you come to gloat, human? He asked bitterly. No, Jia replied. I've come to inform you that you'll be returned to the new Vashi government for trial. They want to make an example of those who ran the specimen program. You could just kill me, Neth said. That's what Vashi would do to defeated enemies. That's the difference you never understood, Jia told him. We're not like you. Even when we could be cruel, we choose not to be. As she turned to leave, Neth called after her. What will happen to my ship? Jia looked back. It's not your ship anymore. We're converting it to a transport vessel to take everyone home. All the beings you collected from across the galaxy. That evening, Jia stood with Tai and Suk in the ship's observation dome. Through the clear ceiling, they could see stars spread out in endless patterns. I never thought I'd see Earth again, Ta said quietly. I was starting to forget what it looked like, Suk admitted. Jia placed her hands on their shoulders. We're going home. But first, we have to help everyone else find their way home too. Below them, throughout the massive ship, thousands of free beings prepared for their journeys. Some would return to their home planets. Others had been captive so long they had no homes to return to and would start new lives elsewhere. 1 year had passed since the liberation of the Vashi mothership. Earth had changed more in those 12 months than in the previous century. The revelation that humans were not alone in the universe had unified the planet in a way nothing else could. Jia stood at the window of the new Galactic embassy in Seoul, looking out at the city where she had once been just a simple veterinarian. Now, massive screens showed ships arriving from distant worlds. Alien visitors walked the streets alongside humans. Children played with holographic displays, showing star maps and distant planets. Ambassador Kim, they're ready for you, an aide said from the doorway. Jia nodded and straightened her formal uniform, a blend of traditional Korean design and the new universal symbols of the Galactic Confederation. On her collar was a small pin shaped like Earth, marking her as humanity's chief representative. In the grand meeting hall, representatives from 27 worlds sat around a circular table. Some were familiar faces, Commander Vox of the Krell, now Admiral Vox. Dak, representing a coalition of formerly subjugated species, and even a delegation of Vashi, their scales dulled to show humility rather than pride. The first annual conference of the Galactic Confederation is now in session, announced the moderator, a tall being made of shimmering light. One by one, representatives reported on their worlds. Many spoke of recovery, of healing from Vashi control. The Krell described new defensive systems designed to prevent any empire from rising again. The Vashi delegation, led by a young reformer, detailed their efforts to dismantle the specimen program completely and make amends. When it was Earth's turn, Gia stood. All eyes turned to her. 1 year ago, I was considered a pet, she began. Today, I address you as an equal. Earth has embraced its place in the galaxy with both caution and enthusiasm. She gestured to a display showing Earth's progress. Ta had led a team adapting Vashi technology for clean energy. Suk had revolutionized Earth's communication systems using alien principles. Hospitals around the world now used medical techniques learned from a dozen species. But our greatest achievement isn't technological, Gia continued. It's understanding. Humans have learned that we are neither the center of the universe nor outside it. We are part of a great community of thinking beings. After the formal proceedings, Gia visited a small private room at the back of the embassy. There, behind a special containment field, sat former Commander Neth. His once vibrant scales were now pale, and his posture showed defeat. The Vashi reformers requested that you attend their rehabilitation program, Gia told him. They believe even those who committed the worst abuses can change. Neth looked up, surprise in his sideways blinking eyes. You would allow this, after what I did? That's the difference between us, Gia said. What you saw as weakness in humans, our compassion, our willingness to forgive, these are actually our strengths. I still don't understand your species, Neth admitted. That's why you need to learn, Gia replied. Not as a commander studying specimens, but as one thinking being learning from another. That evening, Gia returned to her small apartment near the embassy. Despite her important position, she had kept her living simple. On her wall hung a picture of her old veterinary clinic. Beside it was a photo taken on the day the liberated mothership had returned to Earth. Gia, Tai, and Suk standing together, faces tired but triumphant. Her communication device beeped. Admiral Vox appeared on the screen. The last transport has reached Sector 7, he reported. All known captives have now been returned to their homeworlds. The Great Return is complete. Thank you, Admiral, Gia said with a smile. Has the scientific exchange program begun? Yes. The first human scientists arrived on Krell Prime yesterday. They were very enthusiastic. Gia laughed. We're a curious species. After the call ended, Gia stepped onto her balcony. Above her, the night sky was filled with stars that no longer seemed distant and unreachable. Somewhere up there, ships moved between worlds. Beings of all kinds lived, learned, and grew together. In just 1 year, humanity had taken its place among the stars. Not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals. Earth's strength had never been its technology or its weapons, but its people, their adaptability, their compassion, their determination. The galaxy had changed, and so had Gia. From veterinarian to captive, from pet to rebel, from freedom fighter to ambassador. She looked up at the stars and thought of all the eyes across the galaxy looking back, some with 6 pupils, some with compound lenses, some with vision beyond human understanding. All of them now knew one important truth.